I'm Sarah Lacey.
And I am Paul Carr.
Welcome to the
Hello.
last prenatal edition of Why Isn't This
Or
News?
not. Or not. Could be another 3 or 4 months.
That's not really how medicine works.
Oh. So how long do you have now until they just go, fuck this, we'll do medicine?
About a week,
Oh, okay. So we could, in theory, do one more.
but we won't.
We won't. We definitely won't. But I'm saying there is, in theory, it is possible you could do enough. But you're right. This is the last prenatal edition of Not Safe for Work. I mean, fuck me. Why is this news? I've
Did you
honestly.
just consume my one of my content
Yep.
bands?
Yep. No, I have just.
Over.
Honestly, my brain is so
Think
fried
about
right now.
yourself. Is that what you were going to say?
What?
You only think about yourself.
And my team. No, I've just been drowning in not safe for work stuff because we finally went to print with our print edition.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Went to the printers.
Tell me how the experience at the printers was, because that's something that most modern journalists or even journalists of the last 20 years have never experienced.
So there's various interesting things to say about my experience at the printers. The first is putting aside business, putting aside, future of journalism or any of that crap. Printers are cool. Going to the printers is fucking amazing. So did you see that Henry Blodgett blog post where he discovered newspapers for the first time this past week? So Henry Blodgett,
Business Insider more religiously than anyone I know.
mainly because I was trying to
Which
explain
not
this.
that religiously, by the way, because I don't really know people who read it. But
I was gonna say, and I do have an altar where I read Business Insider. Um, you will not believe what this 2,000-year religion just. So Henry Blodgett wrote a post about how he was staying in a hotel, and he opened the door of his hotel room, and lo and behold, there was a newspaper on the floor.
wow, that sounds like every experience in every hotel across America.
You'd think that, but then you'd also be the kind of person who would think that a flight on an aeroplane in coach would not be worthy of 27 images in a slideshow. But that's why you and I are not Henry Blodgett. Henry Blodgett was so blown away by the fact that this newspaper had miraculously appeared outside his door that he wrote an entire post about, wow, just think of all of the different people that were involved in getting this newspaper to my door. There was the journalists, the printers, the copy editors, the guy who pushes the little cart around the hotel. And for what? Because Henry Blodgett just stepped right on over that newspaper and looked at the news on his phone. Which
He does realize that they still got paid.
it's a bit like saying, just think of all of the people that went into getting eggs for breakfast. The chickens, the farmers, the trucks, the planes, I don't even like eggs. Why do these people even bother going to work in the morning? Because I, Henry Blodgett, do not care for eggs. They could ban all eggs in the universe, and I, Henry Blodgett, would be fine. And that was basically what he was saying about newspapers, was all these people did all this stuff, and for what? He can read the aggregated version of all those people's hard work right there on Business Insider. You don't need those people. I mean,
Yeah, you could just aggregate, I don't know, more tweets.
you could just aggregate thin air. Look, I can just write a post about a thing that I just saw outside of my front door. I don't need news. I don't need facts. What an idiot. Anyway, so the point being, the next day I went to see the printing of our newspaper, and I saw many of those people he described as utterly useless, and a number of things struck me. First of all, the attention to detail that the printers went to of. So first of all, the attention to detail that we went to get things ready for print, because you don't get a second shot at it. There is something about not having the ability to go back and fix something that makes everything about the journalism and the fact checking and the writing and the editing so much more important, and so much more effort goes into it when you can't just update with, oh, it turns out that this thing that Nicholas Carlson just spewed out was totally wrong.
And Peter Drucker
Peter
is.
Drucker. This shit is going to be around forever to embarrass you. So but then also just seeing the work that the printers put in to make sure the colours were dead right. And it isn't just nostalgia. It is that sense of if print went away, we lose something. We lose something, some amount of effort and pride and attention to getting it right the first time that goes into producing print. Something we lose something if that goes away. But then something else was interesting. I was talking to the guy who was like in charge of the print process, and we were talking about kind of the death of print. And he said, yeah, like a couple of years ago we were all talking about that, and everyone was like terrified for their jobs because the magazines had all lost all their ad pages, so they were all like really thin, all going out of business, and also all of the just the flyers and all the other crap that goes in the mail. Like the casinos weren't doing mail outs to their customers, and because everyone thought the internet was the future. And then over the next 2 years, they actually measured the responses to all these things, and it went through the floor. Like their response rate, the advertisers' response in digital was so low that they all immediately went back to print again. And he said like their business has never been more healthy. Like they just had to expand to another plant to keep up with the demand. Like he's like, if print's dead, like bring it on.
But is it mostly advertising? Because I wouldn't say like if this junk mail goes away, something's lost. Like that,
No,
I'm fine with that.
no. I mean, let me. Half of what he was talking about was what we would call junk mail, and he was saying the engagement though in that is just nothing in digital, but advertisers get a response even with junk mail in print. No, the other half was the ad pages in magazines. He was saying that the ad pages in magazines they're coming back because advertisers are realizing that yes, it costs slightly more to advertise in print, but the engagement is so much higher and the response is
Not sure
there.
industry stats back that up at all. What magazines is he working with?
Well, I know they published the Christian Science
Fair,
Monitor.
just the only thing I still subscribe to is like worryingly thin. And like Business Week, which I think Bloomberg's done an excellent job with, is like a pamphlet. And like when Time Warner was trying to sell its publications, like no one wanted Fortune or Time or Money or like their biggest names.
I don't know. I know they do Christian Science Monitor is one of the ones they publish. I don't have their client list, but I do. I don't know. Like the Chicago Reader said this week that their print readership is higher than it's been in a decade. I think. Let me put it this way: I don't. In the same way as you can't say because one newspaper is going away, print is dead. You can't say because one is coming back, print is alive. All I'll say is the idea that print is dead is so premature. It's ridiculous. Just seeing the stacks of newspapers and magazines they had in that place, and just seeing the process that went into making our print product and how fucking great it looks, by the way. It's print is not going away until digital could go anywhere near to replicating the engagement and the experience of print. It's just hilarious reading people like Blodgett going, well, why do they even bother getting up in the morning? It's like, well, because there's a compelling business case.
I mean, look, I think print is going away, definitely. I think it's sad. I agree with something lost. It is going away. I mean, they're just young people are not picking up magazines and reading it. That having been said, I mean, I think it reminds me of what happened with records. I mean, cassette tapes, like, I mean, other than being on like hipster t-shirts along with mustaches, cassette tapes, have gone. No one's listening to cassette tapes. No one's listening to CDs. But like records still like got like surged in popularity, and record pressing actually became a viable business again a couple years ago because of this nostalgia. But like you and I are not listening to music on records. Like just because it surges in popularity for like because it has a place or because like of a certain nostalgia or a certain thing that you can't replicate elsewhere, digital, like that still doesn't mean it's the future. Like records aren't the future.
So I think I actually sit somewhere in the middle of this argument. I definitely don't think, oh no, print magazines are going to be the way that we consume news, or newspapers are going to be the way we consume news in 20 years' time. Of course I don't. I mean, if you're talking specifically about newspapers and the delivery of news, we all know that's going. We all know that's not going to be in print. It's ridiculous picking up the New York Times to get news because you have read it the previous day. That having been said, the record analogy falls down for me in one key place, which is the reason why cassettes and mini discs and all the other things have died is because the experience for most people, for the vast, vast, vast majority of people, the experience of listening to an MP3 on an iPhone is exactly the same or just as good as listening to a record. They lose zero and in fact they gain a lot because they can download it. We haven't yet reached the point, and we may and we probably will, but we haven't yet, and we won't for the next decade, reach the point where the e-reader experience is as compelling as the print experience. Right? We haven't got that technology yet. You and I both bought Kindles very early. You and I both put our Kindles in a drawer.
You and I are not are
No, but
not.
we don't. My point is, we don't read print for nostalgia. We don't go. We're not hipsters who are like, oh, ironically, I've got this book. We read it because it's the best way to read a fucking book. I
But
think news is different.
you and I write books. Like we have this whole like romance attached to it. That's like saying to a record nerd, like, "Hey, you and I still like records, so
No,
everyone."
I think. All right,
I
so
think that's
let's put
really
it this way:
flawed.
the print book market is still 75% of the book market. That's an unarguable with number. The When it comes to
And also,
reading,
it started getting disrupted. I mean, we started out talking about magazines. You have to
no, I
pick.
agree. No, I agree. What I'm saying is, so my key point, which I've been
I
making.
get exactly one magazine, and I don't read it every time.
So I read. So here, there's a whole discussion around because of the amount of other things competing for our time. Do we subscribe to magazines and read? Like, do I read the New Yorker every week? No, I don't.
If you don't subscribe, then it's dying,
Right.
whether we like it being there or not.
Well, I don't know. There's a number of different discussions around that. The one that I'm interested in is the experience of reading in print useful still, not just to people ironically or nostalgically, but still useful. And I would argue, and we saw it with Time Magazine. I called this when I saw it. I said, I bet the Time Magazine piece, the Steve Brill one, does really well in print. It doubled their print sales because there is something about reading a 22,000 word piece that needs to be in print because the online and the web and the tablet experience just isn't there for that kind of long form. I will agree with you, though, that with the internet competing for our time, a lot of people are willing to settle for Business Insider headlines and cat videos rather than sitting back with the New Yorker. That's a problem. And I think for a print publication to earn its place in your, whatever you call it, media diet, it has to be really fucking good. But not because it's competing with a digital version of that same thing, but because it's competing with Game of Thrones and...
Yeah, this is the same conversation that do you remember like when we first met with John Taman at Byliner, and it was like the three of us had an argument, and the two of you insisted that like their .com idea, where people wanted to find more long form stuff they would be interested in, was viable. And I was like the Scrooge of the table saying, no, the two of you are not representative. No one is looking for more long form stuff to read. People go through their media diet trying to eliminate and trying to say, I don't have to read this, I don't have to read this. Even when I look through a magazine, on the rare occasion I do, that's how I approach it, because there's just too much.
Yeah, look, I agree, by the way, and this is where I think newspapers have a problem. This is where, if you're competing if you're trying to be something that somebody has to read, which I think is what Newsweek and things like that try to do, I think you're pretty fucked, because I agree with you. It's like, people are just like, I need to pare down what I have to
I
do.
don't have to read you, though. Increasingly, I do not, which is why I used to read The New Yorker. I used to read Vanity Fair religiously. I don't now. There's no room for the I don't have to read this, but I'd like to in my...
Okay, so that idea, and that, I mean, that's true with you because you're running a business and raising a child, about to give birth to another child and everything else. And the idea of reading for pleasure going away, that's not representative.
But wait, but I'm saying I think the magazines are where it's getting squeezed the most. If I'm gonna like take time to read for pleasure, I'm gonna read a book because I don't get enough time to read books.
Which is why what we're trying to do with our magazine is replicate we're basically doing two ebooks, sticking them together, because yeah, exactly. I don't want, if I put 20 things in our magazine, I think most people are not going to read it. I think they're just going to be like, I don't have time to process how much shit there is in here. What I wanted to do was replicate the book experience so that it becomes something that doesn't date the stuff that's in the magazine. The aim is that it doesn't date that quickly. I mean, one thing is about something that happened 20 years ago, and one thing is about something that happened 10 years ago. We're quite happy for you to put the first issue of Not Safe for Work on a table and read it on vacation in 2 months. I don't care. The online stuff is the stuff that's really timely and topical. I do think, though, there's room for that sort of byliner length piece of 20,000 words or whatever it is, where it's a coffee. It's a long coffee on a Sunday or whatever else. And
no, we've never disagreed with Byliner's publishing business. Which
right.
Is
so I think what
the fact that I want a website to surface 15-year-old Michael Lewis stories that I might like.
So I will agree with you. No, look, and I agree with you. I will both, in hindsight, agree with you on that, but also defend my position then as now, which is when John Tamer was showing us that, he was basically saying, we're going to focus on this ebook publishing model, which is done just great. I mean, some of their books are great, some of their books are not so great, but it's...
We don't know how it's done.
No, okay, I'm going purely as a consumer. Purely as a consumer, some of their stuff is really good they put out. I have no idea about their business model. I know I get royalty checks from them like once every 2 weeks, and that's quite nice. But I don't know how their business is doing. What I mean is, when he then said, and there's this extra thing that will be essentially like an IMDb for long form, and you'll be able to click on Michael Lewis, and it will show you other people like him and other stuff. I said, that's cool. I said, I really think that should exist, because I do like the idea. But that was definitely one of those things of, I would love this to exist, and I would probably spend some time playing around on it, which I did. Do I think, though, that it's going to make me read those long-form pieces on byliner.com? Absolutely not. I don't read long-form on the screen.
You guys both thought I was being such a raving bitch.
You were being such a raving bitch, because you were basically saying to him, no, that's not the point.
Raving bitch.
You can be right in a raving bitchy way. You were like shitting all over his website.
I don't think I did it in a raving bitchy way. I think I did it in an honest way.
I agree. Look, I have seen you being a raving bitch, and you were probably a rational bitch about it. You were basically just like, I just think this is a horrible idea, and you kept saying it. But
what? And was I not right?
I think you were. I think you were right insofar as it is not a thing they should be spending a lot of money on, or they should be focusing their business on. It's fun though. It's nice.
They had one great business, one shit business.
Look, I don't. Again, I am saying it's one of those things where, look, if you want to piss your money up the wall and do this, I will enjoy playing with it. I'm not going to tell you to not do it because it's not my money. You, in fairness, we were there for different reasons.
I'm not telling him not to do it. I'm telling him what I'm going to write.
Yeah, that's the difference. Is you and I were there for slightly different reasons. I was there because I wanted a coffee and a scone. You were there because you were actually supposed to be advising them and also maybe talking.
No, I'm not advising them. I'm just.
No.
You know.
You were there as a reporter.
I tell people to their face what I'm going to write about them on the blog.
You were there as a reporter who. What you were saying was, as a reporter or as somebody who's seen a lot of these businesses, I was just enjoying a scone and someone was telling me there was a cool thing, and I still think it's cool. I don't know how the fuck they're ever going to make money out of it.
I think it's done.
Yeah, I think they're not doing. I think it still exists, that part of their site, but it seems to increasingly use.
Articulated that it's not.
I think it increasingly is used to promote their books, which is just fine by me, by the way. Keep buying "Sober Is My New Drunk" by Paul Carr, available through Byliner. So anyway, the point being, the experience of being at the printers was phenomenal. It's so amazing watching just the scale of the fucking thing. They have these massive drums of ink that pipe into the printer, and apparently they use so much ink at that plant that the ink company has built its own factory next to the printer factory.
It's a lot of ink.
So that gives a lot of ink. I don't know. And there is something though about holding.
I totally agree. I'm just saying not the everyman.
Yeah. No. And look. And again, this is entirely consistent with what I've written on Panda and what I've said before. For the mass market, I agree. They are going to be just fine with Business Insider, Gawker, and Instagram.
I don't know why the two polls to you are, everyone consuming everything in print and 20,000 word pieces and Business Insider. Like, that's so stupid.
And I should be clear, like I've always tried to be clear with this. I am not talking about the trade press. I'm not talking about anything to do with business, anything to do with that you need to do your job. I'm talking purely about reading for pleasure here, because I think you get into whole different dynamics when you get into things like Pando or Wall Street Journal even, or things like that, which is why, by the way, Blodgett's thing was even more fucking idiotic, was he was talking about the Wall Street Journal. Like, yeah, Henry, I'm sure that the Wall Street Journal should just stop its presses because people can get what they need from Nick Carlson. I mean, you fucking really? Or from a guy who's not allowed to be on Wall Street anymore. The not allowed on Wall Street Journal, as they should rename Business Insider. Yeah, I wonder why he'd have an issue with the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, so it's like me having an issue with a magazine about getting drunk. It's like, yeah, I can't do that anymore, so I'm annoyed. So, anyway. Point being, it was really fun, but also it just drove home the in my view, the fact that print has a bold future.
I don't think it drives home that print has a bold future. I think it does drive home why it's unfortunate that print doesn't have a bold future. When I was, watching Jeff lay it out and everything, I was like, oh, that's really not. I mean, I was reminded of all those things that you were saying about why for a writer, it's very gratifying. The problem is it's like a two-way thing. It's more gratifying for a writer and an editor than it actually, or a designer, than it is for readers.
I am very happy to. I think also what it did was drove sort of redoubled my determination to. I don't really care about saving print in terms of, you know, Us Weekly or even the or US Weekly or whatever, how you're supposed to pronounce it, and or even the Wall Street Journal. I would like to create a world in which our magazine can continue to exist for 100 years, though, because I really do think the experience of reading it, not about as a writer, as an editor, as anything else, but the experience of reading it and the people whose hands I put it into, which isn't many yet, and it's going to be interesting what happens this week when people start to get it. I think the experience is way richer and way more rewarding because it's these two long-form pieces than trying to read that stuff on the web or even on an e-reader at the moment. So
You never get to make fun of Phil Ibn again.
for saying that Evernote will be around for 100 years, I can't make that promise. I probably will still make fun of him.
No, you just invoked him. You've copied him.
Okay. I think if
100 years from now, you want this magazine coming out.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think if you aim for that, then if you can get like 30, you're probably doing okay.
Wow, it's almost as if what he always says makes sense, and you're a dick for always making fun of him.
I think he thinks Evernote is going to be around in 100 years. I'm saying print magazine.
He's talking about his... I think it's slightly more likely that Evernote, as a company, will be around 100 years than a print fucking magazine. I will take that.
That's our bet now. When people talk about the history of Not Safe for Work and how we're the only print magazine still going, they'll say, interesting, it started as a bet between two friends. and they'll evoke that story. And people say, I don't think that story's true. It'll be like the Pez eBay story. And then people will look at this video on their special devices they have to buy to watch old videos. Because people will be watching this video in 100 years as well.
Yeah, they will.
When Craig Butters is 112 years old.
I know. You should show off the magazine.
Maybe I will.
I'd like to see it. I haven't seen it.
It's so this is it. It's reversible, you see. So that's the first cover, and that's the second cover. So you can read it. So the main story, the first story, starts at one side. So we have, for example, on this side, the Not Safe for War, our guide to the 100 worst people involved in the Iraq War, who should never be allowed near a war again. I won't spoil the ending. It is not George W. Bush. George Bush actually is relatively low in the list. We decided because the test for the list was, if there's another war tomorrow, who should we keep as far away as possible? And
right.
I don't think George Bush, he's just painting now. He's basically done the reverse Hitler.
Well, I was watching, I don't know why, because I never watched the show. I actually find it somewhat unwatchable, but I was watching Bill Maher the other day.
Oh, I find that unwatchable.
It is really unwatchable, yeah. But I was like, I woke up and it was on.
Yeah.
And he was
dream.
He was. I know. It's like, God, what a insomnia. So he was talking about how actually George Bush is the only one of those sort of main administrative leaders who sort of as he put it, went back to his room and rethought things and stopped coming out saying how great the war was. He actually shown somewhat remorse versus a lot of the others.
He's shown him now that he's found his thoughtful painter side. He's found himself. He's become more contemplative, and he's. I'm looking for the picture of George Bush in the magazine because it's kind of wonderful. Basically, we only included him in the magazine so we can include this picture. I don't want to give too much of the magazine away, but I think this is worth it. Hang on, what the fuck is he? The picture of Charles Krauthammer as Dr. Strangelove is also worth the price of admission for this magazine, by the way. So this is Brad Jonas's picture of George Bush painting in a bathtub, which I think is worth the price of the magazine entirely. And it just basically reads, he's mentioned this list only so we could include this illustration, and that's basically true. The other side then is, we have some other stuff sort of dotted around. The inside cover is probably going to upset a lot of Twitter people, but fuck them. The other inside cover is probably going to upset The Onion, but fuck them as well. But then the other big piece is Mark Ames' ADL story about how he was spied on by the Anti-Defamation League on behalf of working on behalf of the South African government, which is kind of an amazing and dark and horrific story. So that's going to be a winner. And then we have in the middle we have a piece by Jeff Coyen about how he got fired. Oh no, he didn't get fired. Sorry, about how he resigned from the New York Press. Headline. I know you do. It's a revised version of the original one.
No, you fucked it up. You changed the headline that was good, and then the one that is awful.
Yeah,
If I picked up that magazine, I would put it down because of the headline. And I am like not necessarily a shrinking violet, but it's gross. It's like not something I want in my house. I'm gonna tear that page out when you send the magazine.
Should I just do it before I send it? Should I just black it out like Saudi censors before they allow Maxim into the country?
I feel like sometimes like, and I mean, I think
context for the piece. It's not just something we pull out of the air. It's
that doesn't really matter.
Sorry?
That doesn't really matter in a headline.
So we had to change the original headline because it was, given we had the ADL piece, we were a bit worried there was a little bit too much mention of Jewishness in the magazine headlines that could cause people to think that we had something of an obsession. So we had to take out the reference to Judaism from the original title, but we still needed something that was a direct quote from the piece, and that, I don't know, we'll see, you may be right. We may end up with a lot of torn out pages, but I think most people take it in their stride.
I don't know. I just think that, like, I think sometimes there's a lot of benefit to not having, like, a filter against swearing for the sake of it. But it's like, I also feel like sometimes just, like, being, like, just overly gratuitous of it, it's, like, just boring.
I agree with you.
It's like Gawker with snark. It's like, yeah, you know what's really hard? Actually doing reporting and saying something about the real world that's funny or witty or biting. Just being overly snarky for the sake of being overly snarky is like kind of undercuts that.
I would argue that there's enough reporting in this matter. Like, I think there's a massive difference between what you're talking about, which is Gawker in the body of their articles does no reporting, cares not a jot for the fact. They're just snarky. We're talking about a headline.
That seems gross for the sake of being gross, which I think undermines you guys.
No,
but
well, I think if you read, I mean, the point of the piece is he says in it how he wrote in his opening editorial at the New York Press this particular line, which his editor then took him aside and said, we told you to be to be gross, but not that gross.
Entails context in order to make sense, then you don't make it the headline.
I'm quite happy I'm quite happy taking that risk. I just think it was important for the purpose of the piece, which was that somebody took him aside and said, "Oh, we don't want this kind of stuff in our magazine." I thought it was interesting that we would put it in the headline. I think that's what we were going for. It may not work.
I think that made sense when you had the headline that actually made sense. I think the fact that you self-censored on one thing and then you're trying to say that.
Oh, it wasn't about self-censoring. I mean, I'm still quite happy to use it online. Hey, Eli.
Hi.
Hello.
Say hi. Can you say hi? He ran in here with the biggest smile on his face. He's like,
it was me, and he's like, oh.
Cheers.
Hello.
Hi.
Why are you not saying hello to me, Eli?
Hi.
You suddenly become shy.
Say hi, little guy. You're as up as you can get.
Why are you being so quiet? You're normally so noisy.
He just woke up.
Aww. Hello. Hello.
Say hi, Admiral.
I think he's disappointed it's not Yo Gabba Gabba. Can I dress up as an orange alien? Will it be better?
No. No.
Would you prefer Yo Gabba Gabba?
No.
So you're happy with it being me? Okay. You just don't want to talk to me. That's fair. What are you drinking, Eli?
Wawa? Are you drinking Wawa? No. I think you are.
I feel like all he says when it's me is just no, nah.
No, that's
You're not like this guy.
No face. My assistant calls him Dr. No.
No. Oh.
Oh.
That was Boo running away.
Oh.
That was his interest.
Boo we should explain as a cat. Bye, Eli. Bye-bye.
He's still right there.
Bye.
Bye. Anyway. So hello. He's my favourite part of this show.
I know.
He's like Kramer. Sliding in.
With his curly hair.
Yeah, he's gonna have a new sister soon. He's gonna blow his
He has a new sister already. People don't acknowledge she exists.
No, you keep saying this like I've forgotten that, but my point is, he's gonna have a new sister that he can actually see.
Yes.
I don't think he's necessarily understood that she's there yet.
No, he does not.
Or had to interact with her.
He just
phone
thinks
during the show.
no. Eli likes to hand me this phone.
Oh, I see. I was like, what?
No.
He doesn't want to talk to you.
Anyway, so how's things with you? You haven't yet given birth.
I have not yet given birth.
But any moment now, Eli's being manhandled. Why?
He was taken out of the room. He doesn't like to leave when there's things like computers open
I don't blame him.
and shows being filmed. What's going on with me? That's what you asked.
That's what I asked.
Everyone thought there was no way this baby would not be early, given my size and given that it's my second baby within 18 months. Usually second babies come quickly, and 2 babies within 18 months is quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of babies.
And yet, she is just not coming. I have had probably about weeks now of sort of early contractions and babies dropping and things that should, be signaling more labor, but more labor does not come.
Well, I'm just glad, given that Jeff was laying out the magazine. I was very pleased until 2 days ago that she hadn't come, but now the magazine's done. After you, Evie, go for it.
I mean, it's like everything has really fallen into place, and we're just I had a shoot last week, I had a board meeting last week. Jeff had to finish your magazine. Adam Pinnenberg somehow still had not finished his book that was supposed to be done in November. All of that has been reconciled.
The book is about the Industrial Revolution as it happens, right? It's like the steam engine. Will it take off? So I think that's going to be timely.
His book is going to be good. He's told me.
No, his books are phenomenal. I love his books. That's why I'm looking forward to this one in a year's time being out.
It's coming out in October.
Oh, it is? Okay, good.
Yeah, that's why his publishers were like, for fuck's sake, give us the goddamn book. Ironically, I think I was the only one not nagging him.
Until now.
It's in.
As in until a couple weeks
Thanks
ago.
for taking out the trash. It doesn't work.
It was getting to the point, though, where...
nagging him, because what's the point? I've been there. You can't rush it.
Yeah, you can. When somebody's about to have a baby, you just need to fucking finish your book. Just go and they all lived happily ever after the end. Done. Send it in.
Anyway, but now I feel great about the way things are. I feel like the things that I needed to get tied together business-wise on the CEO side are mostly tied together, with the exception that we still haven't hired a salesperson, because that's awful, but you always got to have one thing that's awful. And then
this headline.
Yes, for instance. Editorially, though, I feel really good. I mean, Adam is ready to come back. Kevin Kelleher is going to write more for us than he usually does, which I'm excited about because I love his stuff. And let's see, Brian Goldberg continues to get a Justin Bieber like following around him, which I love.
It's weird that 14-year-old girls are so interested in the economics of content.
and I gotta tell you, last week, this would be it would be great if I gave birth this weekend, because I feel like last week we had such a good content week, and everyone on staff really had something to be proud of. I mean, Kim shot this another CEO Supper Club, which we're gonna have running, that she's working on now, and she's just phenomenal with putting those pieces together. Richard did, I think, what's his best story he's done for us, which was on this sort of, they're not going to like this description, but this kind of AAA version of the Facebook Mafia. This sort of underneath all the headline names, yet another group of people who got rich on Facebook, who are all angel investing in a syndicate that's mapped out over Facebook, basically, which is where they swap deals. And it was just this really well reported, really good story. And he did a great job on it. The writing was really good. It was just very sophisticated analysis. And so I was excited about that. And then, Erin is probably our most solid reporter week in and week out. So she was Erin. Nathaniel had 2 really great stories on Friday. He had this one about, that I thought the analysis was great on. about how the Pebble watch just needs to sell the
Yeah, I
company
saw his intervention with them.
because, and it's like the thing that I think is, I shouldn't say I love it because I love it in that journalistic sense. Like I don't love it in a Schadenfreude sense, but like, you know, the way the public opinion swings in this business. I mean, it was like you had no VCs wanted to fund the Pebble Watch. And then they raised, you know what, 11 million, 13 million, something like that on Kickstarter, most ever raised. And everyone's like, oh, those stupid VCs. And all these VCs are like sitting around being like, God, I guess we really missed that one. What the fuck is wrong with us? And
Yeah.
like everyone's beat up to them. Now, like the company just keeps like whiffing and whiffing and whiffing on execution. And like, even after, and it's like, yes, okay, they were late, they don't work now, like there's all these problems around it.
But apart
And
from
it's
that,
kind of like, lo and behold, like maybe venture capitalists actually make decisions for a reason. Maybe they spotted an execution. Maybe they were just assholes, but maybe they were onto something.
wasn't the Palm Pilot, the last version of the Palm Pilot, wasn't that called the Pebble as well?
I don't think
I
so.
think it was like the Pebble.
Um,
I
not-
think it was.
maybe, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Palm Pilots.
Because whenever I think of the Pebble watch, I always think of the. I'm looking it up. Yeah, I always think of the Palm Pilot. Maybe it's just some other connection that my brain has.
But anyway, I thought his story was great because a lot of people were just bitching about it, and he like sort of, you know, I mean, Nathaniel usually writes about product. He doesn't usually write about business stuff, and so for him to be like, hey, well, you've still got some goodwill and money in the bank and a concept that consumers undoubtedly want, sell to someone who can make this happen.
Actually make their fucking watch.
So I thought that was good, and then Carney had like 5 stories before noon one day, one of which was like that scoop on the SpaceX funding, which like Elon commented on the record, which was amazing. Like his investors didn't, but he did. And then Hamish like killed it this week. He had a story on Obamacare that like was one of our most read stories. And for there to be anything on politics that does well on our site, like that's phenomenal. He had a story we all made fun of because of the headline about like this kid with.
Fuck! I assumed it was a story about Business Insider.
Yeah, I did too. But BI headline aside, it was actually a really, really great story.
Yeah.
And then he had his. Did you read his OK Cupid story on Friday?
Yeah, he had his identity stolen.
Yeah, and then he had a story today on the 41 hottest men in tech, which. And it was so funny that like, and this is like both a compliment and an insult to Hamish. My husband was reading it and he was like, "Did someone help him with this?" And I was like, "No, he's actually funny." And it's like Jeff didn't believe. But it's, you know, it's so I love where we are as a team right now because everyone is just doing such a good job. And it's like sometimes I'm there and I can like help make a story better. But like sometimes it's just about like trusting them. Because like when Hamish told me he wanted to do that list, I was like, this sounds awful, but go run with it and I'll trust you if you really want to do this. And like, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, that's always a risk. It can go either way. I mean, I feel like that's. I
mean, we spike stuff all the time.
I feel like that's everything that's currently on TechCrunch, except nobody said that could be awful.
Josh Constantine in bed with his phone. That could have gone either way. No.
I have to say, they're really knocking it out the park. Between that and Gregory, whatever his name is, doing. I'm just going to copy a load of quotes from the Mercury thing. And not mention, and write gibberish. I'm going to take other people's quotes, put them in the wrong order, and make them into a gibberish point about the libertarian tech something or other. Like, holy shit. I don't know what's happening there.
But it's like
the only reason I know, basically, it doesn't matter that Google Reader's gone away in terms of me reading TechCrunch, because every day the world will send me like 8 or 9 stories by email saying, can you believe this shit? Like, I read more of TechCrunch by email from people not being able to believe it. Maybe that's their strategy. They've got another reader in me. I stopped reading it, but now I read Josh Constantine in bed with his phone. It seemed like a misguided LiveJournal entry.
I only read the first 2 sentences, so I'm no expert on the story, but he seemed to say, before I had to get out of bed because there was stuff that I couldn't do in bed other than sleep. And I assume other things don't want to know. But he's like, but now that I have a phone, I have the internet in bed. I had the internet about a long time ago on a laptop.
Yeah, he's written the story that somebody wrote in 1965 about what the future will be like. But badly, and as if he's trying to get a creative writing prize.
What someone wrote about in like the early 2000s when Wi-Fi was ubiquitous, and you could. I mean, I'm not clear what you can do on a phone.
Unfortunately, this proves that old truism of basically like you can tell. Basically, the attitude of hotel staff is all down to the attitude of the manager. The attitude of a magazine is all down to the attitude of the editor. Unfortunately, the attitude of a blog is all down to the attitude of the editor as well. And there's unfortunately a culture there of, no, just write something like, try and be creative. Use clever words that you don't really understand.
It is possible that there were readers who wanted to see a shirtless Josh Constantine on TechCrunch. Possible.
I think there's just a lot of, hey, run with it. It's crazy, but we'll try it. That goes on there that, unfortunately, again, learn to paint the fruit before you try and be an expressionist. It's really... I don't think we need to say any more about it. I think... All I will say is, in fairness to him...
If someone liked it, you belong reading there.
In fairness to him, it is part of a series, because he did previously write that piece about how cars need to stop having a gap between the side of the seat and the door because he keeps dropping his phone down there. Now, in fairness, Josh's adventures with his phone that affect only him. I love that. I just love...
You too.
You need to redesign all cars because today I dropped my phone down the side of the... What the fuck is wrong? Meanwhile, gravity. Switch it off. I am sick and tired of letting go of my phone and it falling to the floor. We need this fixed, and we need it fixed now. I will be in bed until it's fixed. Netflix.
It's my phone.
Oh my god, there are books on here.
Buster Booth. Back to we're veering away from TechCrunch. I do think, one thing I've been thinking about a lot this week that you sort of touch on, even in making fun of them, is like the role editors play in the world. And it's like, I had a really interesting conversation with Troy Young, who's doing stuff for Hearst right now. I don't know if that's public or not, but we're like 40 minutes in.
He was talking pretty loud on a plane about it, so if it's not public, it's...
He was doing consulting, but now he's like doing more full-time stuff. But at any rate...
He used to be the chairman at Say Media, right? That was his previous gig. That guy.
We're 45 minutes in. No one's paying attention anymore. But he...
Now we get all these comments from people going, I was paying attention 45 minutes in. This is a puppet show just for
all these people being 3 people.
Oh, how are you? I'm fine. I'm listening 45 minutes in. Okay. There we go. Fun little puppet Easter egg for them.
He was talking... We had this long conversation about like where a lot of their magazines went wrong and where a lot of the things that Say acquired or Say tried to, build audiences around went wrong. Because he sort of seen it from both sides. And he was really talking about how people have confused the digital era with editor-in-chiefs being less important than they were, and like the voice of an editor-in-chief, and like he's like saying, frankly, in the magazine world, paying editors-in-chiefs like an assload of money to be like that figurehead of a publication. Yeah. And he was saying one thing he thinks is changing now and it's going to change in the future is really good editors-in-chiefs coming back.
I was interested to see Dan Lyons.
Oh my God, it's so great, isn't it?
I think it's interesting that a man who spent a lot of time talking about how people like Mike and MG and us, had sold out by taking investor money or by becoming investors, how he made his whole stand about the horrible money-driven culture of Silicon Valley and how awful all these people were and how they were little more than shills, has decided to leave his job at...
Prestigious job
at Read Write, where I'm certain everybody who worked for him adored him, because that's certainly what I heard, has decided completely of his own volition to leave that job. And what job does he go to? Is it the New York Times? No. Is it back to Business Week? It is not. Or
it's never Business Week. He was at Newsweek.
Newsweek, I'm sorry. Is it back to Newsweek? It is not. He has gone to some...
Is it writing another book, pretending to be a fictional character?
He's not pretending to be Ashton Kutcher this time. No. Fake Steve Jobs.
Not even the rumor that we had heard
That he
that
was going to be the new Ballywag.
Ballywag, which, whoa, that would be a step down, but no, not even that.
Ooh. He is not even taking a prestigious job behind a counter at Starbucks. He is joining some bullshit marketing company as bullshit guy in chief. And the CEO of that marketing company wrote a post saying, Dan recognizes that increasingly there are no jobs in journalism for people like him, and so the only place for them to go are bullshit marketing companies. He wrote that on, I mean, he didn't use the word bullshit because he probably thinks that whatever it's called is good. But the point is, he basically said, someone like him cannot work in a journalistic organization in the future. The only place for them is whoring out SEO bullshit for change.
Right.
And so, lo and behold, the grand ethical king of Silicon Valley is going to...
was always wrong about everything.
Sell page views for change. Hello? I can't swear anymore about Dan Lyons.
Eli's thrilled.
I could write better than him.
He writes bad things about my mommy. Whoa. No, you karate chopped the table. You can't karate the table and then say, uh-oh.
We can all agree, all sides of the debate can agree that good riddance to that horrible hack. The only thing I don't understand is how is that marketing company going to react to the fact that no journalist is ever going to write about them? Because they've just hired the guy who alienated everybody. Everybody we've talked about in this show, people we like, people we dislike, people we agree with, people we disagree with, we all agree. We all agree on that guy.
Right.
And somebody tweeted, I think the guy from...
It's true, I think.
Maybe the guy from MIT, from that MIT technology magazine, maybe it was that. Somebody basically tweeted and said, how are they going to deal with the fact that no one is ever going to write about them? Apart from in the context of they're awful because they just hired that guy.
Yeah.
So weird. Like, what exactly is does he make really good coffee? It's like, I don't care, this will kill our company, we want that guy. I mean...
So great.
Anyway, so that made me very, very happy.
I know, it was really awesome.
Awful hack. You sanctimonious, hypocritical sack of crap. But no, seriously, next time I want some inbound click-based marketing solutions or whatever it is they sell, I will be right on the phone to fake Steve Jobs.
I love that, like, Dan Lyon went from someone who, like, a lot of people in our world had never heard of to everyone, like, a lot of people actually thought fake Steve Jobs was funny, and then he did that cameo at the Crunchies that time as Steve Jobs that was hilarious, and it was like, he just totally ascended, and then it was like, whoa, you are awful.
It's like being a tribute band when the Bee Gee that you play dies.
Yeah.
It's like...
And then it's like, oh, I gotta be me. No, the world doesn't like me.
No one wants a guy with a squeaky voice who looks a bit like Robin Gibb.
No. That should be the title of this video. Speaking of, we should wrap up because I'd like to play with my adorable child.
Who can blame you? Who can blame you?
No.
Go do that and
but congrats on tomorrow. It's very exciting. And of course, anyone who's still watching this who has not subscribed should subscribe.
Agreed. You can't get issue 1, but that is gone. But you can get issue.
Can't get issue 1?
No, that's it. People, there was a cutoff, and we ran out of subscriber copies. So
you do have extras. That's if people have money and want a magazine, and you have magazines, that's absurd.
No, the ones that we have are ring fenced for the thing that I can't talk about that we're announcing.
All of them.
All of them. Yep.
Save me 3 copies.
And there are 3 copies for Jeff. Jeff, you can have. There are actually 6 copies on my desk right now for Jeff.
A second.
Awesome. And don't forget to shout out to Craig Butters and the other guy you promised to.
Russ Williams.
Oh, Russ Williams, yeah.
Russ Williams, come here. Eli, come here. Say goodbye, Eli. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Say
Bye.
Russ Williams.
Bye, Craig.
Bye.
Bye, Ross Williams.
Bye.
Bye.